Hello and welcome to the TA Fit My Motivation podcast, episode 7. Last week we caught up with my old friend QLT and there's been some really good feedback from that episode. I had quite a number of questions that I had to answer, but and one of them being that the YouTube video has not been uploaded, but yeah, it did slip my mind. I totally forgot, so I will get that uploaded as requested by a few people, and I'll post it hopefully this evening before I post episode 7's with Ste Lane. So getting on to episode 7 this week, we have Ste Lane. We spoke to him last week. He's a good friend of mine and used to play with him in amateur rugby growing up, and we live not far from each other in St Helens, and he lived up in Haydock, just 5 minutes away from my house. And it was interesting to catch up with Steve because while I went and pursued a professional rugby career, he stayed and kind of went into mixed martial arts and went down a different avenue. We spoke about how he felt like he missed out on being a professional sportsman and whatnot, so he kind of went down this alternative path. And it was interesting to see that we both kind of watched each other from afar and admired each other's work, kind of thing. So it was interesting to catch up and see where he is now in his life as a holistic coach, a movement expert, and a really passionate thinker of all things health, fitness, and mindset. So it was we were on a really good level keel of a good conversation. Was just flowing. We touched on everything from training techniques to diets to habits to rituals, and even to psychedelics and how they helped him and have helped me, and our experiences with them. So really interesting episode. Without any further ado, I'll just get into it because it's a 1 hour 20 episode, so you'll definitely know what we're talking about by the end of it. So stay tuned and stick to the end. There's some good information that's going to be released at the very end. So so take care, and I will see you at the end of the episode. Morning, mate.
Now then, how are we doing, Tom?
Good, mate. Long time, innit?
A very long time, my friend.
Very.
Life is different now.
Have I got a delay or what? Is it working all right?
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear. Yeah.
Sweet, mate, sweet. What have you been up to?
It's still early morning here, so I just finished with checking out the sunrise, having a little bit of a skate. Now we're back. We got a birthday party for my little guy this afternoon. Very relaxed, nothing too crazy. Even though Nicole is gone crazy building.
She got all in.
And all that shit. Oh yeah.
Yeah. You have to, mate. How's it been being a dad first year?
It's like going back to school, isn't it? In many ways. Every day is a school day. You got to learn a lot. You got to learn how to manage your own time, and you can't be as selfish anymore, right? There's never just an easy decision anymore. What do you want to do? It's always there's this other person involved in every single decision, so it definitely changes things. But it's I think it's probably the best, most hardest job you'll ever do.
So
it's
most fulfilling, rewarding. Kind of once you start to see them become a bit of you every other month, it's well, that's mad. I didn't realize that I actually your idiosyncrasies as well that you have that you don't notice that you have, and you're like, oh, I gotta start to do I actually do that? It's brilliant.
They're a good little mirror, aren't they? And you got a 2-year-old now.
Yeah, Atlas. Yeah, he's just turned 2 in January the 21st. He turned 2, and it's he's now. He was a bit slow to talk and stuff like that, and start to string words together. But now it's everything, just anything you repeat, you can't repeat anything, because he will just he'll show you up massively. Honestly, some of the things he comes out with, but it's class. Last night, there's not much to do in lockdown, so we just we got the duvet and we were going down the stairs on the duvet, just playing with him now, because he's 2. He's
oh god.
You can just play with him like a boy now. So it's getting to that really you're getting stuff back as well. Obviously it's rewarding at the beginning to watch them grow from nothing to not moving to moving. But now it's actually seeing that reciprocated development. It's it is class, and obviously it's much more to go. Obviously, and same with you, mate. It's just mad. It is mad. It's just a mad progression in life, but obviously natural and something that you need to do, need to go through. Right. So what I want to do with kind of fill you in with what I'm kind of doing, and then kind of why I've kind of wanted to get you on, and obviously talk about met you playing rugby, and then fill in the gaps from that point to where you are now, movement guru, fitness coach, where you are now. Yeah. So the reason I kind of got into this space was more the fact that I was left with an injury from
Mm.
rugby that kind of was overnight was told, right, you're not going to be a rugby player anymore, you're not going to be able to run anymore, you're not going to be able to do this, and just being told by several consultants really that there's not much chance for you. Your hip's going to degenerate from now till 50, and then you're going to have to need a hip replacement. So from that kind of point on, I was like, right, I got myself into a little bit of a bad rut. Like I was drinking too much, partying too much, and just kind of taking it out on myself because I'd just been my career had just been taken away from me really, and a bit of like my life had been taken away. That's how I felt. And so I just decided that obviously to take it on myself like you do, and then I got into a bit of a dark way, and then I decided to realize that this is no way to kind of help myself. I'm not going to get any better by punishing myself. So I decided to like get out the research books, look at loads of alternative medicines, therapies, everything to try and get myself back to fitness, to basically just to start running again. Because I was at a point where I was literally bedbound. I was like, getting up was absolutely agony. I just had a newborn baby. My wife had just been diagnosed with cancer. And then I was like, what do I do now? Right, I need to get myself on my feet. And then that's where it started, this ball rolling from like going, right, I want to focus on getting myself right, health wise, inside and out, mentally, physically, spiritually, a lot, and so that's like, I'm a year and a half kind of into it still. I've competed in triathlons. I've done an ultra marathon on my legs. So I've proven the skeptics wrong in a sense, but and that's why I'm like, fuck you. Like, oh no, you're gonna have to come in and have another surgery. I'm like, honestly, I'm not having any more surgery. Fuck that.
Yeah, man.
So I've just kind of proven them wrong, and now I'm trying to get other people on with a similar mindset, just to talk about their experience and kind of how they got from A to B, really, and where they plan to go. So taking it back to where I met you, obviously playing rugby for Pilks Rex at 15, 16, were we?
Yeah,
and then obviously we played rugby for like 2 years, and then you kind of, I kind of watched you from afar. Then you kind of went doing MMA. I watched you do an MMA fight, and then from there it was like just kind of watching you travel, blog, and etc. etc. So if you want to like kind of fill me in from rugby, kind of from 15, 16, or even if you can even go back where Ste Lane, who are you kind of thing, and then fill us into where you are today.
Yeah, man. It's funny because like rugby was really the first like spell of my life where I started to just like put myself out in the world a little bit. Before I started playing rugby, and I only came to Pilks Rex like a couple of years after I started at a smaller team called Ashton Burrs. And remember when we were playing, there was like tiers of the leagues that you used to play in, right? And Pilks used to play in the best league at our level, and Ashton Burrs was like a couple layers under. And I actually like took to it relatively well. And, I was like a chubby skater kid before then, like pretty self-conscious, like not very athletic or anything like that. But when I started to get into rugby, I was like, oh, this is fun, and I got my first training session. I got smashed by this big prop, and I was like, but I enjoyed it, like, and it was fun. And I played a couple of seasons there at Ashton Burrs, and, basically was not to my own horn. This is very amateur level, but was too good for that league essentially. Was like scoring tries for fun and was like player's player in that. And my dad basically was like, why don't you go and play at one of these better clubs? And that started that kind of the Pilks Rex endeavors then. And we had a really good team, and we won national championships, and a bunch of lads that we played in around that age and the different teams and stuff went on to play professionally, like yourself. Some of them still playing, some of them having to deal with their own little challenges, and now are moving on to bigger and better things. But rugby was really like, it was something that I wanted to do so badly as well professionally. When you're a kid and you're just trying to figure out what the hell you want to do in the world. So now I'm like 15, 16, I'm playing with all lads like yourself. And, it was like, it would be really cool to play rugby professionally. And you go through all of the trials and stuff like that. And I never really got picked up. So that kind of like hit me like a little bit heavy, and I just wasn't good enough. And I can see that now looking back, but you always have just these grandiose ideas of like being a professional athlete. I think that's what every little boy wants at some point in it, to play.
But if you don't have those goals, you never get there. So you've got to set those goals.
Exactly. And we, like I said, like there was people on my team like yourself and some of the bigger lads, and it's funny age, isn't it? Because like you're 15 and 16, and some people have like hit maturity a lot quicker, and they're looking like fucking grown ass men by the time they're 14 and 15, and they're more athletic, and they're a bit taller, and they're a bit more confident, they've got a bit more swagger, and they're doing better with the girls and all of that. And then you've got that little subgroup underneath that's like a little bit like delayed, you know, a little bit self-conscious still. And you're trying to find yourself, and it's like so icky and so awkward. But I did love playing rugby, and I loved all the challenges. It forced me to confront a lot of my fears as well, because I remember all the big games. Like, I love the game and when we'd get into it, but like there was always nerves before it and shit like that. And like, you know, you're playing against these names, and like there would be names of a certain player on a certain team. You're like, fuck, he's a badass, that guy, you know, I'm gonna get smashed and all of this. But it was awesome, mate. And then, you know, like the rugby thing didn't pan out, but what I was left with was a lot of athletic energy to like channel into something else. And watching all of my mates like you go on to play at a bit of a higher level, I was left like with this gap. Like, I didn't want to just play in like open age as like a beer league kind of thing, where it was fun still, but it wasn't as serious for me. And I wanted to channel that back into something else. And then this door opened for martial arts, and I dabbled in like some traditional martial arts growing up, you know, the Japanese dancing, you know, you put your gi on and but it was like, it wasn't realistic, you know. I was feeling the need for some contact and some test of myself. And it just so happened that my dad had a friend who'd got out of prison recently, funnily enough, who'd done like BJJ and he, you know, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which is what you see now with a lot of the guys do in UFC and things like that. So I got introduced to that, and I was bitten by that bug, and I was like, this is so much fun. It was challenging mentally as well as physically. And that transitioned into like hitting some pads and, you know, sparring and some boxing and meeting a few synchronicities along the way, meeting a few different people who's like, oh yeah, I work at this gym and blah blah blah. And all of a sudden, you know, like a year later, I'm stepping into the ring for the first time in an amateur fight, thinking, what the fuck am I doing here? I got smacked right square on the nose and then leg kicked, and I was like, oh shit, I'm in a fight. Okay, so I dove into Alan's legs and managed to take him down. I ended up submitting him. But basically that started a 3 or 4 year endeavor into MMA, and took it really seriously. Went away and did professional training camps in Canada and America and things like that. Because I was trying to fill a void that was left when rugby didn't pan out, you know what I mean? And that's kind of when, you know, all of us lads that grew up playing together in those few years between like 15s through 18s kind of started on our own little journeys and stuff like that. So I was always watching afar and keeping up with what you guys were getting onto. And, you know, life just has a way of, you know, throwing certain things on your path, like you said, with the injuries and that, and mine just went a different way.
So I think that like you bring up a good point, because you kind of like have that void to fill. Like you had that from 16, 17, whereas I've kind of had that in the last 3 years as such, because like being like semi-injured for the last year of my career. So then that's kind of the void that I've tried to fill, I suppose. So in a way, obviously grass is always green on the other side, but like you've been subjected to like all these kind of different activities and trying to like push yourself out your comfort zone for a bit longer. So kind of I think that's why you kind of like personally I've like watched you from afar and like admired what you're doing, like traveling and stuff like that, because I felt like, oh god, Steve gets to travel all around, whereas like I'm like there thinking, oh, I'm playing rugby, but it was almost like you have to at that point. It's like you know, you lose a lot of the enjoyment for it, because obviously games are amazing. I love games. I wish I could play like now. I'd love to play a game, but the whole politics and all the training and the backstabbing and all that kind of bitchiness that doesn't happen at amateur, that happens a lot at professional, because at the end of the day you are competing against your fellow teammates for a position. So exactly. I can understand why there is that kind of, you know, bit of a bitchiness kind of about thing, because it's just a competitive nature, but it comes across like, especially me, I'm not the loudest of people. I'm not like the biggest of characters in the dressing room, especially because you've got all these alpha males, and I kind of was like I was saying, going back to like seeing you from a distance, and I'm like, oh, he's on holiday, and look, showing my missus, like, oh god, we wish we could go away traveling, blah blah blah. So, you know, it's always what you can't have, I suppose, just admiring someone else from a distance. Like you potentially had that void to fill because you wish you had got in that role. But
exactly, mate. And it's funny how that works, right? You're always doing that, you know, comparison thing, and it is funny because like while I was doing that, I was seeing some of the lads that I grew up playing alongside, and I was like, fuck, that could be me. And you're always doing this, you know, comparison thing. And like you said, the grass is always greener on the other side, when in reality the grass is greener where you water it, right? And everyone's just got their own little like curriculum that gets thrown in their path, and like our roles are slightly reversed here, but I can only imagine what that was like as well, because you made that step and you played professionally and you had that for a span of time. So that becomes like like you said, when that's pulled away from you, not only do you have the thing that you were going to do and you had your sights set on, like, if you're going to play, hopefully you're saying, right, I'm going to play professionally for the next 15 years or so. So a part of your identity becomes that, right? And then you also get us taken away, and all of a sudden you're like, oh shit, like, who even is Tom, right? I was a professional rugby league player, and now you're like, now I'm not. Like, so that was kind of like all the stuff I've been going through, just in a very, own unique flavor. But what I always say is, like, and I coach a lot of people these days, and there's all different manners in the way that this shows up, but the pain teacher often shows up in our lives in many different ways. Like for you, the pain teacher was an injury that stopped you from doing the game that you loved, and now it's put you on a different path. And you can receive those lessons, or you can resist those lessons. And if you resist them and you're bitter about them, it's going to really, like you said, you'll go into that dark place and you'll start self-sabotaging, and you'll always kind of resent life, and you'll say it's not fair and why me, and you'll turn into a victim. And it's easy to do that. It's a little trick of our ego, because it isn't our fault a lot of the times, and not everything is your fault, but it's always your responsibility. So I'm glad to see that you've just kind of, you take that like a man, right? What are you going to do? You can't change the past, right? But you can pivot and keep going and moving forward.
And it was at that point in like that juncture in my life that I kind of started to become a bit more like, once I decided to like look introspectively, I started to then do meditation, and like started to get up and have a bit of a routine, exercise, meditate, and that kind of gave me it doesn't do miracles, like, but what it does is it just gives you a calmer frequency. I think just a little bit, like you can focus on your day a bit more without any exterior kind of traffic going on. You can just get yourself, it just sets me up for my day. And I think that I've kind of got into that purely out of the fact that I needed to have some structure instead of trying to self-sabotage, like you said. I needed something to kind of take my mind away and just to refocus my energies. And I think that's what that has really helped me. And I know that you kind of advocate those kind of things anyway, and you kind of a more spiritual, holistic kind of a coach. So let me kind of segue into saying, like, so what are your kind of structured methods for, I know everyone's different, but like, and every individual would have, obviously, like I will, I'll assess that person, situation, and how I can help them specifically. But in general, who is Ste Lane, the movement kind of coach, and kind of what you have this business that you've developed yourself from after, in fact, what you did was you went from MMA, then you did traveling. So like kind of fill in that little gap as well, where you were traveling, and then you met your missus and Nicole, and then that bit. Go on.
Yeah, so like when the MMA thing was going on, what I really had to learn pretty quickly is how to manipulate your body weight, right? In terms of like cutting weight for competitions. So when you're fighting, you kind of pick your weight class depending on your frame or whatever, and you kind of you set this date and it's 8 weeks out or whatever, and then you're like, okay, I've got to get down to 11 stone or 155 pounds as my weight class. Now I'd be walking around at probably like 13 stone or something, so two stone over that, and not like incredibly fat, but like carrying a little bit of chub or whatever. So you'd manipulate through diet and all of that. But then as you're getting older and you're also training, you're filling out your frame, those weight cuts get a little bit harder because muscle's denser, and you're carrying less fat as you mature and fill out and all of that stuff. So it was really like actually just in that process of having to make weight, learning a lot about nutrition and understanding the basics of that. At the same time, I was at uni for sports therapy, so I was being exposed to these different interesting things about the body and how the body works, and helping out my teammates with weight cuts and things like that. So I basically just kind of found a lot of joy in nerding out on the metabolism stuff and looking at it through a different lens. And really what happened to me is I was kind of failed by the classic paradigm of like calories in, calories out, track your macros, and a lot of the myths that permeate our culture. Like I was scared of fat, right? Because fat is so calorie dense, and fat will make you fat. And because I was an athlete, I was training 6 days a week, 2 times a day. I was like very much stuck in this like, well, carbo load, right? You got to replete what you deplenish and all of that stuff. So I was kind of moderate protein, high protein, whey shakes and all of that with skim milk, oats for breakfast and all of that stuff. And it worked for a couple of competitions and things like that. But then what I found is I was stuck in this place where I basically trashed my own metabolism and my hormones and everything, because at this point now, the only way, once you get into that, you know, kind of reductionist view, and it's all about calories, to continue losing weight is to keep driving calories down. And I remember looking back, I was actually home over Christmas, and I found one of my old logs where I was like tracking stuff, like written in, believe it or not, it wasn't on a phone, and I was actually writing it with pen and paper. And this is me during a fight camp, and I was eating like 1,200 calories a day, training 6 days a week, twice a day, and now like 1,200 calories a day is like breakfast for me now. It's
Yeah.
And that's why I wasn't feeling good. You know, I was cranky all the time, and I was picking up little shitty injuries and things like that. So it was through that process of desperation that I actually kind of found more of this ancestral holistic approach to nutrition, and that really helped me with that. So then, like, I was always just into that, and I was always reading books. I was always consuming material. I became, you know, very interested in, you know, just reading out in the scientific literature. So when I met Nicole in 2013, and we, you know, came together at a summer camp that I was just doing, you know, I was last year at uni, I was at a summer camp and was having some fun over there, and she invited me on this trip, and I didn't really have anything planned, and she was going to Asia on her own. I was like, this is perfect time to do it. So as we went out there and we hit it off, and we decided that was our easiest way to stay together, because she's American, I'm English, and the visa issues were complicated. So we circumvented that problem by just going to different countries and traveling. So all through that time, you know, when you're on these long bus rides, or you're hanging out on beaches, and you're, you know, killing time in hostel and things like that, I was just always just reading. I was always interested in that stuff. So I kind of used this as like my second uni, almost, like learn through the world and experience, and also like just consuming a load of material. And then through that, you know, I didn't realize what I was doing at the time, or what it was going to, you know, spawn into was this health coaching practice that I have now. But I was just kind of amassing lots of information and reading from a lot of different sources. And it was basically you know, it was just me pursuing what I really enjoyed, knowing that, you know, I was learning a lot of cool stuff. And, you know, we did that for 4 years. So it was a lot of time of just learning, experiencing, and experimenting with the world. And so that's kind of what happened in that gap, was just like a lot of fun, a lot of travel in Asia, Central and South America, the Philippines. Like, we went all over. We did a year working holiday in Australia, and it was such a fun time, man. And I like, travel is just, you can't beat it. It's
you
the best.
cannot beat it, can you? Like some of the like the places you've been, and obviously things you visited, I've just been like, wow, that's like amazing. It's like bucket list, like a few things that you've done. Like, where's, just a segue from this conversation, but where's your favorite kind of places that you've been?
People ask that a lot, and it's so hard to pick. You know,
you got married in the Philippines.
Yeah, no, we got married in Indonesia.
Indonesia,
actually, right? A little island called Gili Meno, which is like this trio of islands, and there's like 3 of them. And Gili T is the one where everybody goes to party and like get wild and take mushrooms and do crazy shit. Yeah. The Gilia is like the happy medium. Gili Meno is like the very tranquil, like peaceful one. We got married there. So Indonesia's got a soft spot in our heart, and we traveled that country. We went like all the way out east, all the way out west. We saw wild orangutans. Yeah. We swam with, you know, these giant manta rays, but we love the Philippines. Vietnam was a really special place. Yeah. Like Thailand. I mean, man, it
just goes on and on. I think my favorite is Southeast Asia as well. I mean, I've been to Gili T. I went to the 3 Gili Islands, but I didn't know that's where you got married, to be honest. I went we did a Bali kind of trip, and we did like a month in Bali, and then went all the way around kind of Bali, tried to see the whole of Bali. But Bali to me is just a bit too
Australian.
That's it. I was trying to say it without saying Australian. A bit too Australian, yeah, pretty much. But it was just like, it seems like a little bit like a Spain for Aussies. That's what I felt like it was.
Yeah, exactly. Like so Benidorm for Aussies.
Yeah, exactly. And then when I got to Gili T and Gili Air and whatnot, it was like a refreshing to be out there. But then also we went to the Pangaea. Pandawa. Yeah. Pandawa on the other side of Gili T, so it's dead quiet. No one was there. It was like there's like the sunset side, the sunrise side, the sunset side. So we were on the sunset side. No one was there apart from when the sunset. They drive around on the bikes, and then they watch the sunset. But that's what we were over there on our was it first year we got so it's first year married to Dan, and then we went over there and ended up getting obviously mushrooms and we met a guy over there from New Zealand, and he was like, oh, do you want one of these tabs of acid? And I was like, oh, all right, then why not? Obviously, like don't advocate just taking random tabs off random people, but we followed him on Facebook first, did a little background research. He wasn't an absolute weirdo. He was a snowboarder, right? He was actually an actual professional snowboarder. Like we had a look because we just vetted it out, and he was the coolest dude ever. It was just like, you know, one of these kind of just like when things are just flowing and you're just in a good mood, and then it was just such a positive vibe that everyone around just was like attracting good vibes. It was mint. And then we just went round to the other side of the island with him, and we had this. He went off with his mates, and me and Dan just like wandered like the whole quiet side of the beach, and we were. Obviously, when you can't, we were signing to our room because we just like lost concept for money and time. Right. It was just like, but then the waiters, because this on Pandawa side, there's like 5 restaurants and bars. Basically, they're pretty empty. But all they said was, "I'll just sign for that to your room." So we just thought like, we're just getting all this for free. Like, we just kept thinking, just signing loads of things. And we was there. Anyway, I could go in for hours about this, but like there was so many good things going on. There was call to prayer because it's a Muslim island, isn't it? So there's like call to prayer happening. This is the sun's rising in the morning. So like
it's like 5 o'clock in the morning, and you're like, what's going on here?
So like they got call to prayer there. They got some music going on there, and then I was like in this kind of triangulated funnel of sound, and it just sounded so good together. All these 3 sounds, and there was a droplet of water dripping in that was like adding to the collection of music. And I'm just stood in this position for like 25 minutes. I'm like saying to Dan, I'm not moving. This is sick. Can you hear this? She's like, no. She's like, no, you've had twice what I had. I was like, yeah, probably. Sidetrack, but travel, amazing, right? We'll go to coaching, moving forward, right? Fitness, right? I wanted to say the day in the life of Ste Lane. What is kind of that? What does that entail? Obviously, you said that you've been well read in terms of diet, nutrition. I mean, there's so many arguments lately, and it's so annoying to get into discussions about people. Just go back to what you said about your cutting weight and you having 1,200 calories. We were told by professional rugby nutritionists all the time, white rice, just eat loads of, it was basically high GI foods, high sugar, and like all these protein bars that were dreadful for you. And like after I finished rugby and stopped exercising, I think when you're exercising and your metabolism is burning calories like on a massive level, and you're utilizing all that energy. But once I become sedentary after getting the operation, I started to have so many stomach problems. I started to get bloated, gassy. I was having leaky gut. I went to the doctor. The doctor's trying to say, so the doctors don't have a clue. It's ridiculous. They're like
clueless, mate.
Absolutely. I was so frustrated going to see this doctor, that doctor, and then ended up saying that I had chronic gastritis and that I needed to have my gallbladder removed because I had a history of gallbladder disease in my family. So they just literally wanted to stick another knife in me, and I was like, what is going on? So then that's why I kind of corrected my diet, because I was like, it can't just be this. So then I kind of like stripped back, did like a 48-hour cleanse, and then like a week kind of really intermittent fasting or extreme fasting-ish with just like water, and just like started to reset my whole body. So then I could reintroduce stuff to find out what was affecting me, and then started to read more about diet, and then started to get into the whirlwind of vegan versus non-vegan versus paleo versus all these things. And then you start to you kind of come to a, well, you know that the kind of paleo diet is the diet that kind of works well for me, works well for most of us, but like other people are different. I know that everyone is different. They will have certain other requirements, and they will absorb nutrients slightly different. But in general, I'm kind of on that paleo side, but I'm a little bit less. I have a little bit less meat, just purely because the inflammation responses from red meat and the meats tends to give me a sticky joint. I do it too much. So I try to go for an 80-20 kind of 80-20 diet. So 80 veg, 20 meat in a week. That's how I kind of go for things. Yeah, mate. So anyway, I digress, but like go back to your your kind of what was I saying before I went off piece? Went back to your so like a day in the life of you. So like kind of what do you do? Get up, and how do you go about your own day?
But firstly, like just kind of echo some of your sentiments there that you said, like, because it's so common, and I like a lot of the people that I end up working with now come to me after they've been through the ringer of doctors, right, and they've seen the ringer of specialists, and it's like, it's just, this isn't to like shit on doctors or whatever, because they're just parroting the advice that they got taught in university. But the problem is the advice is old. The problem is the advice is dated and it doesn't work. And you know, this allopathic medicine model, which we're always looking for a pathology, means you'll find it where it doesn't really exist. And what if, crazy idea, that the food that we're eating actually like really impacts our internal health? And you know, we've been kind of, you know, pushed on this more this, grain-based, carbohydrate-based agenda, which is relatively new in the grand scheme of things, and especially when you consider evolution. And a lot of that can cause a lot of problems. Again, when you're an athlete, you're a mega burner, and you train in 6 days a week, it's not going to bite you as hard in the butt. But as soon as you extrapolate that advice out to Joe Blogs or Joanne Blogs, right, it's not going to help them. They're going to get stomach problems, they're going to add weight, and you've got to go through this process of removing some of those immunogenic and pro-inflammatory foods to really find what works for you. And you never know, right? It's crazy, because how much of that, chronically spiking your blood sugar, chronically keeping insulin up, chronically having leaky gut can lead to autoimmune issues, can exacerbate, injuries. Maybe like your hip injury wouldn't have been as bad if you had someone early on in those days say, why don't we address these foods, right? And let's get them out the diet, because that, drives so much inflammation. So it's funny that you mentioned that, because when I first started into this world, I was very much just diet centric. And that was my kind of niche, if you will. And then it's just evolved over time, because while diet is a huge piece of it, and I fully agree with what you said, like there's a scope, there's kind of like a home base we can work from, understanding that, if we predominantly eat real food, and that means earth grown nutrients. So did it grow from the ground? Did it fall from a tree? Did it have eyes in a butthole? Did it come out of the ocean? Like basically those are the things you eat, right? And not so much the things that come from factories, and understanding natural fats and all of that stuff. And then there's a scope within that. How much does one do based on their ancestry, the genes, the personal history, the gut health? How much meat versus plant matter do they do, and all of that? And that's where you bio-individualize. But that's pretty much home base that will work for almost every single person. But then you also have to take that deeper, right? Like who is this person in front of you, right? What are they dealing with? Because I've had people that they could be nailing the diet, right? They could be absolutely smashing it, they're nailing the workouts, but they're still inflamed, they're still sick, they're still, hamstringed by something. And then it's got nothing to do with that. It's lifestyle stuff. Maybe they're not managing the stress. Maybe they're in a toxic relationship. Maybe they've got childhood traumas that they never work through. So all of this stuff starts to bubble up to the surface when you start to clear space for that stuff to come through. And when you have that coach, or when you start to get into these practices like meditation, where you start to clear that space for yourself so you can respond to life more than react to it, right? You kind of start planting roots. So, that's kind of the stuff that I help people work on, and how that ties into like what I do every single day, and how I spend my time in my days is, I know as a coach that I can only take clients on a journey as far as I've been. So it's the most important thing for me to do, to not be a talking head, which is so many people like just parroting advice, but not following their own advice. Is I have to consistently hold myself to an impeccable standard, to uncover what makes me the healthiest, to learn from personal experience, combine that with what we know about physiology and the literature, to give those gifts back to other people. So I spend my time trying to be the healthiest, most productive, happiest version of myself, not just in diet, but also integrating different movement practices, different spiritual practices, mindfulness practices, stress management practices, light practices, sleep, stress management, all of it. So, a day in the life of myself is helping share those gifts with people. And helping coach them on those things, and kind of work as a mirror for them to like highlight some stuff that maybe they're not seeing. But first and foremost, it's to work on myself every single day, to try and be a little bit better, to try and be 1% better every day, to try and age well, because as we get into our 30s, we're now aging males, like it's crazy how that happens very quickly, right? So how do you age well? How do you take these injuries that you've dealt with for a long time and heal them? How do you move well? How do you feel good? How do you be a better husband and father? How do you be a better man? How do you be a better communicator? And all of that stuff starts with yourself. So it's all experiential for me, and just getting into it and living it and practicing what I preach more than anything else.
100%. I think you're right in saying like that, like the more people, I think the way that kind of I attack someone's kind of health issues is purely just kind of like you say, is I give them a kind of a pathway of what I do, and then just try and tweak it for their lifestyle and let them fit in within their lifestyle. And I think that most people now, like I think like the future of PTs, coaches, are more teachers, and just instead of and like I said, it's almost like a physician, but for like a doctor, but like for non-medicinal purposes. It kind of like that I think that's where it's going, because basically once you solve movement issues, once you solve stress issues, once you solve sleep issues, once you solve all these, you'll find diet issues, you'll find that 90% of your problems are solved anyway. It's like as a byproduct of living healthy, living well, living happy, obviously exposure to light, all these biohacking techniques, but basically just living better equals being healthy. And then you'll find that all these like ailments that you have and like niggles that you get just disappear well, not overnight. Obviously it takes hard work, dedication, but once you start to manipulate that into your lifestyle, instead of it being a quick fix, like, oh, let's get a 6-week program of this PTs where we're going to do three a week or whatever. That's not going to work. Like that'll work maybe to get you onto your holiday to get a few Instagram snaps.
Bingo.
But it's not gonna help your longevity. It's not going to help your life. It's not going to change things. And those people I find who've come to me from other kind of trainers have been through like the same trainer several times, and they've just been on like a cutting diet, and they've just crashed. Basically they've done a crash diet, and then they obviously they regress massively. They go probably three steps back after that, and then they come to like people have come to me and then they just go like, I start them off with such basic stuff, and just basically living a little bit better, making sure that they're eating the right things at the right times, and that those little things that they think at the beginning they're a little bit like, oh, what's this? What's going on? I'm expecting you to smash me and do all these things.
Where's all the trendy stuff, man? Where's all
what are you doing? And literally 2 weeks in, they're like, oh my God, this is amazing. I think that's the new kind of nuanced kind of view of a coach and a health and fitness kind of.
Well, you know what's funny? You said that then, like the becoming teachers and in a sense, and it's funny because the doctor, right? What we call a doctor now, doctoro is the etymology of the word, and in ancient Greek it means teacher.
Yeah, all right.
Doctors were the teachers, and that's kind of the role now that all of these PTs and health coaches that are looking at this a bit more holistically are filling the need for, right? They're becoming the doctors, if you will. And we're not going to have the fancy lab coats and maybe the doctor in front of the name, but wouldn't it be great if we could have an army of, PTs, coaches, and people on the ground that are helping people actually stay out of doctors' offices, by living holistically healthy, managing these basics. And I know people always want what's trendy these days and what's the best and how I'm going to burn most calories and what's the coolest, newest diet. But you're right, so much of it is just the basics, right? And if you address the basics and you're living healthy in your mind and you're living healthy in your heart, and those things are in alignment, then a lot of the other stuff, it just like starts to fix itself. And then you end up arriving at this place where it's not so much like I have to do a diet to get healthy anymore. It's kind of like, oh no, I want to do this. I get to eat this way because I have this newfound level of health and self-respect, and ultimately that's self-care, that's self-love. Self-love is not getting a fucking bubble bath and painting your nails. Self-love is like looking after yourself, loving yourself enough to want to be healthier. So you can arrive at that point naturally. It's not this thing that like, oh fuck, I've got to do a diet, I've got to get the personal trainer to kick my ass. Like hopefully over time people can see like, oh no, I get to do this, like, and because life is enhanced in every single way when you get healthier. Your relationships are better, the state of consciousness you operate from, your level of presence, how much energy you've got to play with your kids, not getting out of bed every day, being in pain and all of that stuff. Like life is enhanced when you get healthier, and people should like, my mission is to like make that what people want, right? Make health as infectious as diseases, because right now we've got that flipped completely on its head.
And like you said, doing a service to the state in your case, or doing the service to the NHS, if the more that we do to help these people on an individual basis, that then can propagate to their family members and then their friends, and then they start to see that they're living healthy and happier, then that can propagate. And like you said, keep people out of hospitals. You don't need to be getting people, you don't need massive bills, or like people worrying about being in sick beds for weeks on end. Going to one big gripe for me is having to see my granddad and family members in homes in the last few years of their lives. That is something that I want to mitigate, completely. Like those things, they're not a place for anyone to spend the rest of the days. You know what I mean? I think they're absolutely awful places, and like the treatment's terrible. It's fresh in my mind because he's not long past, and it's like the guy was just a loving bloke, and then he's left to fend for himself. And I just think if you're healthier, because what my granddad ate jam butties 4 times a day, and like he wouldn't say, do you know what I mean? He'd be labbing it on it, and he had gall problems, he had all these issues. He towards the back end of his life, he was just degenerate. His body survived
yeah.
till he was 78, 79 or whatever. I think he might be a bit older. And then it just after that, he just started to get ailment after ailment after ailment. And to be fair, the body's pretty resilient to resist to that age, you know what I mean?
Very.
But then in the last 5 to 10 years of his life, it was just, you know, he was a shell of a man. He started to get dementia and all ailments that come with a bad, what you put in bad fuel into your body. And obviously I'm trying to say this to my family members, and it sometimes falls on a deaf ear, but I think like my kind of goal, especially this year, my main goal is to get my mum back on track with her, get her back in healthy again, because it's quite hard to get your parents to conform to what you're kind of reading about and talking about, because you're the child and still have that feeling of like, oh yeah, whatever, Tom. And I'm like, no, honestly,
I know best.
I know best. I'm
sure, whatever. What are you talking about? Shut up.
Pop that prosecco for us, will you, Tom? Pass us a glass of wine and put those things in microwave over there. So yeah, that's like kind of a bit of a goal for me, to try and keep people, especially, living better, so that their last, you know, their way out of this planet, this life isn't as traumatizing as what it is when you look at people in those nursing homes. Like it's not the best. But so like, but I think that what we're doing is a good service, and hopefully that we can help those people and like live better, like you said, longevity, get happier, more successful, wholesome lives. So like moving into the longevity, and like kind of, is there anything that you kind of advocate that you do in terms of supplementation, as like biohacking methods, as in like I use oregano oil. I find that's really good for my stomach, and I use it in a diffuser. And frankincense and myrrh, I use them quite a bit when I'm meditating and stuff like that. So is there anything that you find that's like brilliant for you, that's like kind of not just something that you take like an off chance, one-off thing, something that you incorporate into your rituals, weekly, daily, monthly, whatever it might be?
Yeah, there's a lot, because there's a lot nutritionally, and there's a lot you know, kind of lifestyle based as well. But you know, like what you said, like oil of oregano is a very powerful, it's kind of one of like nature's antibiotics and things like that, and you can use essential oils and things like that. And what you can do is you know, when you're using those things as well, like what we don't realize we're doing a lot of the time is we're anchoring a certain smell, olfactory anchors, to a state of consciousness, right? Just like we don't realize we're so anchored to so many things in our environment unconsciously. Now we start to hack these things consciously. Like when your phone rings, what do? Right? You pick it up and you answer it. That's completely unconscious. If you can start to now cue things in your daily life that actually put you in a certain mode of consciousness, because for example, every time you sit down to meditate, you've got a certain smell going in the background, that when you smell that puts you into that place quicker. So that's more of like a psychological hack, as well as having the properties of the actual essential oil itself and what it can do in the nervous system. But that's the reason why, like, you know, you can hear a certain song and it can like zap you right into a certain moment of your life, or you can smell a certain thing and you're like, oh, that's granny's, you know, blah 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 cake or whatever. These things, you know, and information combined with an emotion really form a memory. So you can use all kinds of stuff for that. So anchoring is something I teach my clients, in a sense that you can have olfactory anchors, you can have sound anchors, and you can have anchors that you choose, like snap your finger, clap your hands, because if you practice them enough to choose a certain state of consciousness, you can get there quicker. So a good one is like a performance one. So if you're coaching athletes and you want to get in the zone, then pick something that is replicable. You can do it. It's easy, and it stacks a few of these things together. So I have like it's a bit of a barbarian, like beat the chest kind of thing. But when I do that, I've practiced that always in that environment, doing that thing. So when I do that, my neurons that fire together wire together, and I'm basically telling myself, like, at this moment, this is what you're doing. All distractions fall away, and I'm getting myself to maybe that flow state quicker, and then my performance is enhanced. And you can do this all over, and you can do it with smells, you can do it with taste, you can do it with environmental things, you can do it with snapping your fingers, clapping your hands, rubbing your cheek, whatever it is. So there's so many ways you can hack your life, as well as supporting yourself nutritionally. So I guess, you know, in terms of like supplements and things like that I've really liked, I've very much enjoyed taking medicinal mushrooms. I think those are a very unique supplement. You know, they're not like a plant in terms of typically like a vegetable. They're a part of the fungi kingdom, right? And they're incredibly intelligent. And if anybody's interested more in mushrooms, like the documentary Fantastic Fungi will just absolutely blow your mind. I think it's like £3 on Amazon or something like that. You can get it. And it
What's
just
it called? I've watched pretty much every single one, but I've not heard that one. What's it
Yeah,
called?
this one's amazing, mate. It's the best of the docos, I think. It's called Fantastic Fungi.
Right.
And I'm pretty sure it's on like Amazon. It's not on Netflix. It's like a little paid for one, or you might just be able to go to fantasticfungi.com. But it basically talks about the intelligence of these things and how they're working in these mycelial networks under the flora of the forest, and they're communicating, they're keeping everything in check, and they kind of do similar things in our body as well. Like they're adaptogenic mushrooms, which means they're adapting non-specifically to any biological need per se, but they're adapting to a person's requirements. So maybe somebody is super stressed and they're hypercortisolemic and their adrenals are all fried, and they can help with that, right? They can lower that kind of stress response, get you a bit more rest and digest, parasympathetic. Maybe you need some immune support. I think that's fresh on everybody's mind right now, with the pandemic and things like that. And mushrooms are an incredible source of immune boosting properties. They down regulate inflammation, and they provide just a really nice sense of like a grounded kind of sense of clarity for me. They've got like, I'm taking a blend that's got like lion's mane in it, for example. Lots of cool science in there about your neurochemistry and your brain health, and cordyceps is one that's more for like performance, and that's ATP. Like, but those are really fascinating to me. The mushroom world is very fascinating to me.
I went, just to cut you up, I went pretty deep diving into mushrooms. Obviously the non-psychedelic variety that I take I do 4 days on, 2 days off, that kind of thing. So basically my kind of blend I either do it sometimes with a coffee, but I don't like to have too much coffee just because of the stress on your adrenal glands. I don't like to go over the top on coffee. So I like to have like cordyceps, chaga, reishi, and lion's mane, and turkey tail for inflammation as well.
Yeah, I love that.
So I kind of have that in a bit of a blend, and I get them from a Time Health. I get them from. I'll put links and stuff if people are interested and whatnot afterwards. But I find that when I have them, I definitely feel like just a little bit. It's almost like a subtle sharpness. It's not like it's not necessarily like a coffee where you feel like a bit revved up, and you just feel like a nice glow, a nice hue like throughout the day, and it's no up and down. You don't get jitters or anything like that. And I've really found that, especially having a ashwagandha in the tea, I really do find that really gives me that just extra bit of glow. I think that's the best way to describe it, of a glow. I know it sounds a bit woo-woo, but it definitely is. Like, that's how I feel. I think that's how to describe it. But those for me, I think I try not to take too many things at once, because then I don't know what effects are having. That's what I try and do. So I'll try and go, so if I do incorporate something else into my regime, I'll drop out other things and then put that in for a couple of weeks, maybe, or a week. I usually find that 2 weeks is it's like a diet. It takes about 2 weeks for your body to start to change, adapt. So it's about 2 weeks into taking something new and fresh, that's when I see the benefits of that particular compound or molecule or something that I'm taking.
Love it, mate.
So so like I just think it seems to think it's like something that I've kind of, you obviously research and you read about, but it's all almost being just being self-aware and listening to your body as well. Like if something's not agreeing with you, because some of these things, there's oyster mushrooms, but not the oyster mushrooms itself. There's within the mushroom capsules, there was ones that I got, there was like a blend, and there was actual oyster for virality, obviously oyster extract. And that makes me so anxious and stressed and paranoid. But some people swear by it for just feeling like an extra boost. Obviously, kind of can increase your sex drive and whatnot as well. But it just made me feel like really paranoid. But that's just a subtle kind of 55 milligrams of this one thingy. And that's how potent they must be on a scale of on your brain. So once I noticed that was kind of caused me a little bit of troubles, I took that one out, and then you just go back. But I think just telling people that they got to be self-aware about what they're doing, and not just to take a swathe of products and just go and just hope it's a cure-all. Again, it's it's kind of because we've been brought up in this society of put a plaster on and make it fix, and then people start to take vitamins to try and to make them fix an issue that's probably, again, boils down to food and medicine. Let thy food be thy medicine. That's kind of what it boils down to. But so the things that I've been kind of focused on, again, is to do with trying to recover from injury. So I've not got it in myself, but I noticed that you you were speaking to someone a while back, I think, about red light therapy. So I've read up a bit about it. So what's your experiences with red light therapy, and how's it helped you?
That's a good one. I'm glad you mentioned that. I always forget it when people talk about, like, what do you do? Because it's just become such a like ingrained part of my life now that I can't even like it. It's just like it's part of my life. Right. Red light therapy is specifically targeted wavelengths of therapy that's shone from a device. And these are going to be LEDs. Now, red light obviously we can get in nature, and when we can get in nature, the nature solution is always going to be great as well. But also remember, like, this biohacking movement, and it is, I don't like it speaks a little bit to what you were saying. Like, a lot of people are looking for the fix, right? A lot of people are looking for that one thing that's going to heal all. And biohacking has done that a little bit. It's told people that, yeah, if you just do this thing and this thing, you're going to have all the answers. But first, like, yeah, let's get the basics down and let's live naturally, and then let's bioharmonize. So I try and use the term bioharmonizing more than biohacking, and this is one way you do it. Yeah, to have that one, mate. So, the red light, you get it if you go and watch a sunset or a sunrise. But when you do red light therapy, you're basically capturing those kind of wavelengths, and you're massively condensing them, and you're shining it on a particular area of your body. Why is that? Well, just like when we watch a sunrise or a sunset, we are literally giant fucking solar panels. And we can eat, protein, carbs, and fat, and we can drink stuff, and we can take supplements. But when you get down to brass tacks, our body is a light machine. It's an electron and light machine, and that's how it communicates across cells and things like that. And what speaks to producing these, the ATP, the adenosine triphosphate, the energy that we particularly use and basically fuels our life is from the mitochondria, which reside in every nucleated cell on the body. There's millions of these little guys. These are kind of bacteria, and you do a chemical process, they produce your energy. Light charges these guys up. Appropriate light at the appropriate times kind of supercharges them, just like we're getting the right kind of dose. So with red light therapy, what you're doing is you're targeting it on a particular area. Now, you can do full body and get great results too, but as it pertains to certain medicinal benefits, you might be shining it on a area that's got inflammation or an injury. And because that is concentrated, and because you're 6 inches away from this thing, you're super dosing that area with the appropriate kind of light. And what that is doing is it's literally charging up the mitochondria. It's healing the mitochondria. Those mitochondria in that area start to become more efficient, essentially. They're producing more energy. The energy in that area that's localized is then going to do what it needs to do. If that's inflammation, fighting, and repair, then that's what it's going to spend its resources on. It also increases intracellular and collagen in the skin. So it downregulates these inflammatory cytokines. It upregulates ATP production. It increases collagen. It provides pain relief. And ultimately, it just helps you operate at a way that you're supposed to operate, because so many people, everybody's got mitochondria, there's no way around that, but the health of one's mitochondria kind of dictates the level of energy that they're going to have, and maybe even the health and longevity status. So more natural light is very, very important. Bioharmonizing with red light is very important, because unfortunately for us, we spend 90% plus of our days inside, and we're staring at screens and all of that stuff, and that is the bad light information that our body doesn't thrive on. So that's where red light can be incredibly effective. Injuries shining on your balls for testosterone, shining on your hair if you're losing your hair, because those mitochondria come back online. They start to do what they're supposed to do, and it's really powerful.
Yeah, so I like obviously I've not had dealt with it, but I've just got an ordered one off the internet quite recently. Just the small ones, not too big. I've got 2 of them, so I can kind of get them on the area specifically.
Yeah.
But and then you kind of goes on to you talk about the blue light, and that being negative because it doesn't absorb fully through your skin deep enough, does it? It's just surface, isn't it? Whereas the red light has the wavelength that will travel through into your blood.
Bingo.
And get into the ATP, the mitochondria, help them, and it also has a signaling effect, doesn't it? So like you say, I think you touched on it, saying that you've got a like you said, inflammation response in a bone. It can help your bioclast. It signals bioclast, is it? To help to reproduce collagen and collagen again, and obviously repaired tissue and bones. So that's why I was kind of looking at it for my hip. So and also being in northern hemisphere kind of country, I'm not getting exposed to half as much light. Being inside all the time, I'm not getting exposed to half as much light. So obviously with the whole, I've been taking a lot of vitamin D supplements. And quite high doses, 10,000 to 20 sometimes, like 3 days on, 2 days off kind of thing. But because purely in England, we're just not getting the right amount of vitamin D. There's no way that we can, even anyone in the Northern Hemisphere, we're just not getting enough. And that's why
Absolutely.
I think part of the problem of the whole, obviously I'm not a doctor and whatnot, but one of the problems I think, in my opinion, is the whole COVID epidemic that's gone even worse, like metastasizing in the UK and obviously in obese countries, but particularly in the UK, it's been prevalent because of this, obviously the lack of vitamin D, and then the light exposure, and just that the immune system is just massively weakened because you're not getting those again, you're not basking in the sunlight, you're not absorbing all that radiation that you need. So it's just really, I've just tried it, and obviously you've got some good results. Have you had some good results from it?
Oh, incredible results, mate. Like from fixing little niggles to, keeping my testosterone nice and high to just feeling youthful. And also like this for me is very supplemental. There's a reason I live in Florida. I'm a sun worshiper. Coming from the Northwest, speaking to exactly what you spoke about. Seasonal affective disorder is very, very real. Light is medicine, and if you can synthesize your own vitamin D through sunlight, that's amazing. And if not, you have to take the steps to put that back in. And it's not even controversial to say what you said anymore about COVID. There's published reviews around this. Vitamin D treatment, it massively cuts mortality rates and hospitalization rates for people who have COVID. And why is that? Well, because light is immunomodulating. It actually downregulates inflammation. What do people who die of COVID-19 die from? They don't necessarily die from the virus. They die when they get the virus, and that starts an inflammatory cascade, right? And the immune system goes haywire. Right? Vitamin D treats that. Vitamin D brings that down. It kind of pushes the brakes on all of these things that's going on. So yes, in an ideal world, we always go for nature's option. But when you live in the Northwest and you're not going to really see any sun that can synthesize vitamin D until probably April, May, then like it's a cheap supplement. It's highly efficacious. Like get it in you. And then, you supplement with the red light. Red light is never going to give you vitamin D, but what it is going to do is it's going to give you those specific targeted rays that do penetrate deep through the dermis. They talk to the cells, they vibrate the cells, they turn on the mitochondria, and they also entrain your circadian clock, which is like a tertiary benefit of it, which is appropriate light at the appropriate time. So we've got all of these kind of physiological effects of light. We've also got the fact that, like, what are most people doing in the evening after it's dark outside at 5 o'clock, and they spend the whole night under artificial lights, LED bulbs that if you use you can see this actually, use your phone, put it on slow-mo and film your lights, and you'll see that the flickering, very, very, that's very confusing because the eyes are picking up all these signals. The photoreceptors on your skin are picking it up. So now you're getting, bombarded with artificial blue light, which is similar to midday light, and it's 7 o'clock at night and you should be winding down and your body should be giving you melatonin, but now it's getting signals from its environment that it's the middle of the day, so your melatonin is low. By the way, another segue here, what's an incredible treatment published now in the literature, I've been speaking about it from day one, for treating COVID-19 is melatonin. It's one of the predominant theories why kids aren't really affected by this and why elderly people are. And as we see, after the age of about 50, our melatonin stores start to tank because it's much more than a sleep hormone. It's a massive antioxidant, and it can really help with that inflammatory cytokine storm again. So like appropriate light at the appropriate time has all of these benefits: synthesizing vitamin D, healing, making you the solar panel so your body runs efficiently, also in training your circadian clock. So your body knows what time of day it is at the appropriate time. Now you're sleeping better because, man, the sleep is a performance enhancing drug. There's not a single thing that good night of sleep won't help make better, so there's so many benefits to natural light and supplementing with it. When there
was a study that I read not long back, it might have been about a year ago anyways. It's like I ended up just going down a rabbit hole just looking at research papers, and then ended up obviously coming across like performance enhancing stuff, and it was just like a paper just on sleep, and obviously that sleep is like the best performance enhancer out there. Like if you have like anything less than a 6-hour sleep leading up to a game or a performance or whatever you need to, I can't remember the actual figures, but it's something like can damage your performance by up to 60%.
Oh yeah,
something like this. Like it's like something crazy. So like this paper was kind of going on about just basically that no matter what supplements you can take X, Y, Z to the whatever you want to take, no matter what steroids, take anything, it's not gonna beat sleep.
How crazy is that?
I know. So I was like, it just reminded me of that paper I was reading. I was like, just from that moment on, you're just like, right, you got to get a decent night's sleep. And then, like you said, people, what I've noticed, especially, and I'm sure other people have noticed it, especially since having to work in front of a laptop a lot more, being on my phone a lot more because of COVID, sat inside indoors a lot more. I started to get like migraines and headaches because I'm constantly just staring at screens all the time.
Exactly.
So like, and I've never had that. I've never really had that before. So I started to think what that can be. And then obviously it's the blue light that's triggering, just like it's on, like you said, it's unnatural. Like, so every now and again, you just got to go out and just got to have a walk.
You do, mate,
blue light
blocking glasses. I'm a big fan of. When you get your red light, when you're working on your computer, not using it therapeutically, but put it in the corner of the room and cast it in your general direction. And what that has, you know, the blue light from a computer is very high on the Kelvin scale. So it's registering as like 2 p.m., 3 p.m. outdoor light, right? By putting the red light even in the corner of your room and creating an ambient light, it balances the spectrum a little bit. So now you might get less eye strain and things like that. And you kind of balance in a little bit. Because what's very interesting as well, you can use red light right up until the moment you go to sleep. And even though it's from LEDs and things like that, it isn't going to affect your sleep, because evolutionarily, one of the only temperatures of light that we co-evolved with that wouldn't destroy our sleep is firelight. And what color is that? It's that red, amber, orange, and it's loaded with near infrared, and it's the same frequencies again. So blue light in the evening, bad news. If you're going to watch it, if you want to Netflix and chill, or you got to work late, get those goofy looking orange blue light blocking glasses. They work. It's not woo woo. There's published science on that too. They'll keep your melatonin high. Get a red light, you know, whack it in the corner of your room. You'll just find you create this really nice ambiance. Turn off the bloody lights and light some candles. Like, you know how cool it is to, like, you know, be with your you know, your boyfriend or girlfriend, and like turn off all the lights and light some candles and play some good music. And then you're also like enhancing the experience, but you're also creating the environment where you actually get to sleep well, as opposed to what most people do, which is like basically just passing out from exhaustion. And there's a big difference between passing out and exhausted versus easing into a night of restful sleep where you get through your full cycles and you wake up ready to kick ass the next day.
Yeah, so it's like what I found since you start getting like doing these, I like exercise, obviously main thing for me. If you don't exercise that day, for me, I feel a bit agitated going to bed, just because I've got high energy anyway. Because I've done professional sport and I've been in that all my life. I think I just need to get out a bit of energy all the time. So like, I find that if I don't get that in the day, then my sleep is definitely affected. But it's not that I can't go to sleep. It's that I'll wake up in the middle of the night kind of thing. I don't get into a deep enough sleep because I've just not worked hard enough. Basically, I think your body, we're hunter gatherers. We're foragers. We're meant to run for, you know, persistent hunters. We run across like that. That's where we are evolved from 200,000 years ago, 300 millions of years ago. Sorry. Obviously the like going to what you said earlier about the grains and the diet, that's only 10,000 years old, farming, and we're trying to live by in a totally different environment to what our ancestors used to live in, and like being on the savannas and running and stuff. So we are used to having these, well, expending all this amount of energy, and then when we're now sedentary, sat at a desk all day, and like you said, getting all this negative information, and being in a city, even being around cars, the noise of the traffic, that kind of I've started to notice it's more because I live near a motorway, and it gives me like, I do feel anxious when I wake up in the morning. I hear cars going past. I'm like, oh God, it gives me just a little bit of like, can't wait to get away from it. Really, I can't wait to get out of the UK at some point and just have like be able to travel and work. That's why part and parcel of me kind of setting up this is that I want to be able to work from my laptop, but anywhere in the world, and have something that I can take with me if I needed to. So like one of the beauties of like setting up your own business and doing this is purely I get to spend so much time with Atlas, which is obviously a joy that like you can't take that away. And I think that was the partly because I engineered, I had an engineering degree, and I applied for all these engineering jobs, and then once COVID happened, they just fell through. Basically, there was no chance. So I just thought, you know what, I'm just going to do this. I enjoy this. It's what I'm passionate about. And then I also get to spend time with my wife and son all the time. So then it kills all those, but like, you know, you get all the best of both worlds.
Absolutely.
But then now I know that what I want is the freedom. I think that this kind of experience, especially pandemic wise, being trapped in your house, but not only being trapped in your house, being trapped in your country with not having the freedom of movement that we're so used to, kind of gives you that almost what's it called feeling, you the bubble type feeling, you're in a Truman Show kind of feeling. It generates quite a bit of anxiety not knowing that not knowing that when
like a
you can move
caged
when you
animal,
want
you
to.
know?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
I know it's obviously we can walk around, we can go out, we can exercise, whatnot, but you do still feel restricted. And I think that increased level of cortisol across the whole of the country is causing a little bit of an epidemic problem in itself, in terms of the high levels of cortisol are going to cause a crash in your immune system, and it's going to cause other problems. It's going to have knock-on effects with so many other things, and so I don't think that people are pinpointing that problem as well. I know I think it was said like nonchalantly on some kind of like some report or whatever, like saying, oh yeah, being locked in your house might cause issues. But I think it's a huge thing, and I notice it myself, just being like sat in all the time. I notice it myself, especially when it's grey outside. It's all right today. I can see a bit of sky, to be honest. It's not too bad. Right. But when it's like grey and like just like it's been grey for like 3 weeks, you just start to get like, oh God, I wish I could just do this. You start to see people on holiday, you see people in Dubai and all this. And to be honest, fair play to them. They've got out there and they're in the sun and they're enjoying the life. And you know what? You don't see half of them complaining about being not complaining. You don't see you see half as many cases because they're in the sun, basking in the sun and enjoying themselves and being happy. And I think that's the main thing, is like just what if you go full circle, the thing about this is just being happy, really. If it wants being happy in your skin, being happy in life, being happy in love, being happy in relationships, if you can manage to be happy in all those areas of your life, then you're gonna be happy. You're gonna be happy, and you're gonna propagate happiness to other people. I think my kind of mission is to be able to do that as well, in terms of not just help the person who's like I'm PTing or I'm coaching, not just helping them, but having that propagative effect to pass that on. That's I think that's my aim and my goal, that I really want to like kind of, and with these podcasts I want to be able to share your knowledge, my knowledge, and I want people to then listen and go like pass that knowledge on to someone else who can then learn from the years that you've read, the years that I've read, the experience that I've had, and the experience that you've had, and then be able to just pass that on and cut out the middleman, cut out those 4 years of research. I'm not saying don't do research, because you always should do research. Like you have to know yourself, you have to find your own way, but in the same respect, it's good to have a little bit of a shortcut into it's a thing, isn't it? It's a mentor. It's like kind of being a mentor, and I think that's where my business I want to go is, like, obviously coaching, but also mentoring, life coaching as well. It's not just physical, is it? It's all that comes with it. Let's just touch on quickly, because we are running over, but you know what? I could talk all day with you, mate. It's been good. So we go. What was it? Coaching, goal setting. All right. So so do you? Oh, ice baths, cold therapy. Mm-hmm. So do you use cold therapy? Do you have ice baths? Do you do the whole Wim Hof craze of things? Because what I did was before lockdown, I managed to get 6 people out with me to go to like a retreat. Basically, I set up a kind of retreat thing, and it was in Wales. It was absolutely beautiful setting on this estuary, and it was stunning. So, and it was pretty cold. We just walked straight out into the estuary every morning, 3 days, and like did a whole kind of meditative practice, but within the water, and just exposure water like quite for like 2 minutes at a time. Came back out, went back in, 3 minutes, went back out, went back in, 5 minutes, and how alive you feel after doing that is amazing. So obviously we've done ice baths in rugby for years, and obviously I used to love them, but I didn't know why I used to love them. Everyone hated them, but I just always felt so awake and so alive after them. So have you had any experience with cold therapy?
Yeah, I love all of the environmental hormetic stresses, including extreme heat and extreme cold. They offer their own unique benefits. But it's funny now, because when I lived up in PA, I've only been in Florida now for like 2 months. It's hard to get the cold enough water to do cold exposure, because everything's so warm here. When I was in PA, I would go and stand out and watch the sun rise, and I would like 6 a.m. in the morning. In America works in freedom units, right? Fahrenheit, but you'd be like way below degrees C. You'd be like minus 10 Celsius, minus 15 Celsius. And I'd stand out there in basically my feet in the snow, and, just my whole body exposed to that. And I'd be out there for 10 minutes until I started to shiver, because that's what starts the magic, that, that browning of the fat, those mitochondria start to shiver. So you produce more energy. There's so much value in the hormetic stresses like cold, and even like facing extreme heat. The cold is more challenging for most people because they just hate the cold. So there's not only this huge slew of physiological benefits that come from exposing yourself that, but also the mental game of like conquering, right? Like fuck, this is going to be cold, this is going to suck, and you still put one foot in front of the other, and you get in there and you stay in there, and now your fingers are going numb and your toes are going numb, but you stay, and that's like incredibly powerful. Oh, sorry, plane going over.
No, so they do still exist. We're not on a flat world.
So yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
Oh, go on.
Bill Gates, man. It's Bill Gates.
Go on.
Fucking hell. But yes, the environmental stresses, the breath, like combining the breath with the cold, like Wim Hof breathing, so you can kind of, you know, be in that state of like mind as well, where the thing that you're really putting your attention and awareness on is the breath. So you're a little bit more, you've got a bit more you know, agency over your mind, instead of, you know, going into that mode where you're like, the cold water hits you, right? The first thing you want to do is go like, oh fuck, oh, get me out, right? When you've done the breath and you've trained that and you're walking into it intentionally, now you get to go, oh shit, okay, and then okay, breathe. All right, this too shall pass. It's just cold. You taught yourself off the ledge. And the reason these things provide so much value in life is that's life in a nutshell, man. Like, I wish life was here to like cuddle you to the grave, but it's not. It's going to keep slapping you across the head. It's going to keep putting things on your plate that are going to shock you, going to surprise you. We're going to have loss. We're all going to die one day. We're going to have hardships. You're going to get things that hurt. So it's imperative that you work on yourself to be able to respond in those situations, not react to them. And the way that you do that is you have to test yourself. You have to expand the range of your nervous system. You have to expose yourself to the cold. You have to put yourself in the heat. You have to go some days without food. You have to kill yourself in the gym. You also have to know when you don't do any of that, and your task is to sit in meditation for 3 days. Like, you've got to test all of these, because by going to your edges, that's where you really find where your center is. And if you can live from your center, where you are in this kind of just grounded energy, where you respond to life as opposed to reacting to it, it's so good for you. It's so good for the people around you. That's what leaders do. That's why leaders, and you said like good people, they're a felt experience. They don't even really have to say anything. You just enjoy being around those people, because they lead by example, and they bring other people up. And then you start this ripple effect of everybody that you come into contact then is enhanced from who you're being and what you're doing and how you're saying it and how you even view the world. So all of these things, you know, it's all a way of training that. You know, the cold is one very powerful way, just as much as like kicking your ass in the gym is, or, you know, saying no to certain hedonic foods because you deserve something more right now. There's so many flavors you can go about this, but that's what it's all about, you know.
And I think that like there's so many avenues where you could kind of stem off, and you can get lost in so many different ideas and research and all these different like there's I think there's just an unlimited amount of methods and techniques to read about, but what it boils down to is what you just said, is just like being at that frequency of just being happy to you just being happy, and you're able to spread that joy and be a leader. And I think that's, for me and you, I think that's where we are and where we want to be, and what we want to do to like kind of just like you said, lead and pass on knowledge, and just help the community, and,
Absolutely, mate.
and rub off on other people, and hopefully make the world a little bit of a better place, kind of thing. Finally, I'd like to end there because that sounds amazing, but I'm gonna have to ask you about psilocybin and your kind of experience with it, and what it does for you, and what like the neuroplasticity that it kind of gives to me, that I feel I've done it like say 6 or 7 times now, and I feel like it's almost like hits a reset button on, and it just makes me view my life from a different perspective, and able to put a lot of stresses out the way, and then have a really focused new direction. So I kind of try to do it once every 6 months or once every year. I don't want to overdo it, obviously, but like I do try and do it, and I try and do it properly. I'm not just one of them who's just going to get whatever from some guy down the street and you know, just do it at a party environment. This is like, this is a ritualistic kind of practice that I kind of like to do to really keep me. It just refreshes my brain. I don't know how else to explain it. And obviously I read about the neuroplasticity and how it can actually fire up neurons across the synapses, across the brain, across the left and right hemispheres of the brain, and can cause like all these great ideas. And just like, but also for me, the main thing for me was the calming effect of it, the after effect, the afterglow. So with you, what's your experience with it, and how have you kind of how do you go about taking it, and what do you
Yeah,
benefit from it?
mushrooms, psilocybin. I grow my own first and foremost, but I was exposed to them, a while back in a ceremonial setting with a guide and everything like that. And I can confidently say that it changed my life in terms of the reframe that it gave me on life. For the longest time, we run through this, game of life that we're playing, and we mostly just think that we are this voice inside our head, and we are this person that is choosing to do these things, and it disassociates you from that a little bit. It gets you to see that you're not just this constant, chattering ego narrative. Like, you are something more, you are different, you are collected. It helps to reframe things, like you said. It helps. Sometimes we're so close to our own problems, it's like a giant puzzle that we can't see where the last few pieces go. Mushrooms kind of pull you back and show you it as a big landscape, and you go, oh, that piece goes there, and oh,
Yeah,
that piece goes
100%.
there. And you don't always get what you want from these experiences, but you always get what you need.
Yeah.
And what you need usually is to deal with this thing that you haven't quite dealt with, and heal this thing that you haven't quite healed. Look at this thing with a different kind of perspective. And sometimes what they do is they give you answers to the questions you didn't even know you were asking. And that's where it's incredibly powerful, because that they're coming from a different place. Whatever that is that your spirit, your soul, whatever, but it's a different operating mode of consciousness. And the way I view consciousness is that it's this infinite source of energy and information. It's what's informing life. It's what's making the sunrise and the moon cycles and the earth spin and the flowers to bloom and people to people, essentially. And it's always there, and we can tap into that at varying levels depending on the amount of work that we've done. And a lot of people are operating on maybe a narrow bandwidth where they're only receiving, kind of the freebie box, right? Where they're getting like channels 1 through 5, but there's 1,000 channels, man. And one way you can, enhance this is by doing the work on yourself in things like meditation and breath work. But what something like an entheogenic medicine or a psilocybin is going to do is it's going to kind of blow the lid right off that and open you to all the channels immediately. And feeling is believing. And once you've felt that, and once you've seen that, and once you get to experience the physiological benefits, as well as the emotional benefits, as well as this connection to a greater whole, and as well as like seeing other people in a different light, because these reframe so much, it will change your life physically afterwards, because you will see the world in a different way. And what we can't do is, and I think a lot of people wish they could do this, is just like change the world, right? I want to just change the world. I want to make people not mean anymore. I'm going to get rid of the racists. I want to make my life good and all that. The truth of the matter is you can't do that. But if you can change yourself, the whole world that you reside in changes. And that's for me what mushrooms do. They flipped everything on its head. They put me in more in like this driver's seat mentality of life. I wasn't so passive anymore, thinking I had to do things or live by anybody's rules. And you said a word before about freedom. And that's ultimately what this game is all about for me. Freedom from, freedom to just be living my life by design, freedom to be fully confident in who I am, freedom to know where I'm going, freedom to be free from any ideals or expectations of people, whether that's teachers, parents, brothers, siblings, society, and mushrooms were one of the ways that fast track that process for me. And I think that they can be an incredible tool if they're used the way you said, not as a party drug, but intentionally in ceremonial setting with the intention of, doing some work, right? It's called the work, you're not going and just taking these and like going dancing around the field like a hippie. You're going to like blow the shutter doors off your unconscious mind and see some of your shit, and see some of your shadows. And sometimes it's going to be rough, and sometimes it's going to be beautiful, and sometimes you're going to meet God, and sometimes you're going to meet the devil. That's the nature of the polarity of this dance. So you better be ready.
And I think for me the best work and is done afterwards in reflection.
The integration,
because you don't like you can't, sometimes you can't, well, most of the time you can't comprehend what's happened in the moment. You have these memories, and I like to have a jot and write down kind of what I've seen and what I've done, and so I don't forget those kind of moments. And but like at the time when you're completely immersed in the feeling and the whole the psilocybin's taking hold of your body, it kind of like it's important to then go back, revisit, reflect, and review kind of what you've done, what you've experienced, and why. Obviously you can't say, oh, it's done this because of this, but you can just start to set those new goals, new pathways, start to tread those new paths that you kind of want to get to those ultimate goals. And it kind of, like you said, it just puts them into focus and kind of gives you a bit of a direction, opposed to,
mate,
like you said, you said you can see from a different wide angle lens, and I think that you hit the nail on the head there. You literally do take a little backward step, and you're able to view everything from a wide angle lens, but then in reflection, you have to then do that work afterwards to make the whole thing stick. You can't just go, oh, I've just taken this, oh, it's great, blah blah blah. Like really lay that groundwork for the next 6 months, a year of your life.
That's right, mate.
Then revisit again, and then keep rinse and repeat.
Yeah, my teacher used to say the ceremony begins when the ceremony ends, because you're going to get all of this, you're going to get all of these downloads and this information, and then it's really about the integration. Okay, cool. You got all of this cool stuff. What are you going to do with it? Because that's the hard work. That's the practice. Yeah. It's one thing to sit and, be high on mushrooms for 6 hours, having all of these divine downloads or whatever. What are you going to do with that afterwards? How are you going to integrate that stuff? So you hit the nail on the head there. That is where the magic happens, and that's where the fun happens. And that's where, if you implement all of that information that you got, that's where your life is going to start aligning a little bit. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, look at this. Things are happening for me, and I'm living, life intentionally, and life gets better from that place. But just like everything, you have to do the work. You can't just take mushrooms and your life's going to work itself out. You've got to receive the downloads, do what you need to do with them in order to be the kind of person that deserves to have the life that you want to live.
Yeah. And you can't take it, like you said, you can't just take it like as an escapism. It's not an escapism. No. It's not recreational. It's basically what you're doing is you just like you said, you're looking at it from a different perspective, but then also you are living, basically you just just focusing the fact that life is hard, life is going to be challenging, but it just gives you a little bit more. Maybe sometimes it can give you a kick up the butt, it can give you a proper slap in the face, but then also it can give you a nice nudge if you need that nudge, a nice little push, a pat on the back if you need that, it give you a hug if you need that. So, but then you've got to then live life normally and get back into the routine of living a better life and being a better person, and spreading that on to other people. Mate, I've absolutely loved this conversation, but I can see my missus about to come in from the driveway, so it's going to start to get noisy. Right, we'll have to definitely do it again sometimes. But honestly,
mate, let's run it back.
100%. It's been brilliant, mate, and I've loved catching up with you. So, and if is there anything you want to say, or anything to sign off with in terms of what you do, if what people can find you, or anything that you can just plug, or I'll try and put everything in the show notes. And I'll put
Basically, where I'm most active by a mile is Instagram, and my handle on there is Peak Primal Health, and that's where you'll find me just showing up, talking about much of the same things that Tom and I spoke about today, and showing off some mobility and movement and all of that stuff. So if you want to connect there, please do. If you listen to this, I really love connecting with people who actually listened, and just shoot me a DM and tell me what you enjoyed about the chat, what was your biggest takeaway, and then we'll connect from there, and we can follow each other in this wonderful alternate reality that is Instagram. So
mate, buzzing. Right, man, take it easy, brother.
Legend, dude. We'll speak soon. All right,
mate, take it out. Peace, mate.
And there you have it, end of episode 7. What a great episode that was. Some amazing pearls of wisdom from Ste. And if you want to find out more about Ste and what he does and what he gets up to, please reach out to him, like he said, and give him a DM on Instagram, where he's most active. Or if there's any question you want to ask me, please feel free to give me a message on Instagram, or in the show notes of the podcast, or wherever you want to reach out to me. I'll be more than happy to help. So I just want to review that. I had so much fun doing that we me and Ste ended up talking afterwards, and we've potentially got a few things in the pipeline that we're going to try and liaise and develop our network between each other, and having this similar kind of mindset and similar kind of career paths. We would love to link up, and in the future hopefully we'll be able to get that done once the restrictions have lifted across the world. So I'll be really excited to see what the future holds with that. Up next, we have Willie Tonga. Willie is an all-time great rugby league player. He's had caps for Australia. He's been in some of the biggest Origin matches, and I was really excited to get down and sit with Willie, because not only is he a brilliant rugby player and decorated rugby star, he's just one of the nicest guys you've ever met off the field. So yeah, it was just amazing to have a sit down and catch up with my mate, and talk about all things fitness, mindset, motivation, life in general. So look forward to that one next week. Thanks all for listening again. I'll see you next time. Peace.